Hello everyone, and welcome back. Thursday, March 26th looks like one of those days of our lives episodes where the real drama does not come from one huge shock. Instead, it comes from pressure building in several places at once: emotional pressure, legal pressure, and the kind of personal tension that can quietly change relationships before anyone fully realizes what is happening. So let's break it all down, because Thursday may not just move these stories forward. It may quietly reshape the emotional balance in Salem. Let's start with Jada and Shawn, because this may look like a practical decision on the surface, but emotionally, it could become one of the most important shifts of the episode. Jada asking Shawn to move in with her makes perfect sense in the most immediate way. He is recovering from a gunshot wound, his leg needs time to heal, and he is clearly going to need support during that process. On paper, this sounds compassionate, reasonable, and even necessary. But on days of our lives, proximity is never neutral. The moment two people begin sharing daily space during a vulnerable period, the emotional stakes change. Recovery creates dependence. Dependence creates trust. And trust can quietly deepen into something much more intimate before either person fully realizes it. That is why Jada's offer may matter far beyond medical care. If Shawn starts relying on Jada not just for practical help, but for comfort, patience, and emotional steadiness, then the bond between them could strengthen very quickly. That kind of closeness becomes especially powerful when one person is physically fragile and the other is stepping into a protective role. This may not be framed as a romantic move right away, but it could easily become the beginning of a more emotionally charged connection. Even if nothing immediate happens, the setup alone is important. Shared space has a way of accelerating feelings, blurring boundaries, and making old relationships look very different from the outside. Even if Belle and Shawn are technically in the past, watching Jada become his source of daily care could still hit a nerve. Not because Belle necessarily wants to reclaim him instantly, but because there is always something painful about seeing another woman step into a role that feels deeply personal. And in Salem, that kind of emotional shift rarely stays simple for long. So yes, Jada's invitation may begin as support, but dramatically, it may be opening the door to a much more complicated emotional triangle. Next, we have JJ opening up to Theo, and this may end up being one of the most emotionally revealing scenes of the entire episode. Because JJ is not just processing a bad moment, he is processing what that moment may say about him. Ever since Shawn got hurt, JJ has likely been replaying that split second over and over in his mind. The hesitation, the missed action, the possibility that one freeze changed everything. That kind of guilt can become consuming, especially when the consequences are so visible. Shawn's injury is no longer just an event JJ remembers. It is living proof of a moment he believes he failed. And the pain here goes deeper than one mistake. JJ's hesitation seems tied to years of emotional baggage, years of trying not to make the wrong call, trying not to repeat past regrets, trying not to become the person who causes irreversible damage. So when he froze, it may have confirmed the very fear he has been carrying all along. There is history between them, and that history gives the conversation emotional credibility. JJ does not just need someone to hear what happened. He needs someone who understands the kind of pressure and memory that can distort a person's instincts in the worst possible moment. With Theo, this can become more than a confession. It can become an honest reckoning. JJ may finally have to admit that the real crisis is not only Shawn's injury. It is his shattered confidence. Can he still trust himself under pressure? Can he keep doing this kind of work if fear and hesitation are still sitting under the surface? And if one mistake has reopened every old wound he thought he had buried, then how does he move forward from that? In a week full of courtroom tension, manipulation, and emotional fallout, JJ's story may stand out because it is so internal. He is not battling an enemy across the room. He is battling shame, doubt, and the terrifying possibility that he may no longer believe in himself. Now let's talk about one of Thursday's most surprising spoilers: Marina and EJ finding common ground. Marina and EJ are not natural allies. Their history is too tense, their perspectives are too different, and the emotional baggage between them is far too heavy for easy understanding. So if they are reaching any kind of agreement now, that suggests the situation surrounding Rachel has become serious enough to temporarily override old divisions. And that alone makes the scene worth watching. Rachel's hearing is putting pressure on everyone around her. Belle is fighting to protect her legally. Kristen is responding with fury. Grady is trying to hold things together emotionally. The whole situation feels unstable, and when a crisis reaches that point, unlikely alignments can happen. Marlena and EJ may not suddenly trust each other, but they may be forced to recognize the same painful reality at the same time. If they find common ground, it may be because both of them can see that Rachel's situation is spinning beyond anyone's control. It may be one of those rare Salem moments where personal history becomes less important than the immediate danger in front of them. And when characters with that much conflict stop long enough to agree on something, it usually means the problem is much bigger than one argument or one family dispute. Still, this is EJ. So even if the moment feels sincere, there is always a layer of uncertainty underneath it. Is he being honest? Is he trying to steady the situation for Rachel's sake? Or is he aligning with Marlena because it also happens to serve his own interests? That ambiguity is what keeps the scene interesting. Because on a soap like Days of Our Lives, common ground does not always mean trust. Sometimes it simply means two people are standing in the same crisis for very different reasons. And that may be exactly what makes this development so compelling. Over at the hearing, Kristen may once again show that when fear takes over, defiance is the only language she knows. Spoilers say she is defiant, and that immediately raises the stakes. In almost any other setting, Kristen's fierce protectiveness might look understandable. But in a courtroom, that same energy can become incredibly damaging. Judges are not looking for emotional intensity. They are looking for stability, accountability, and signs that the adults around Rachel can handle this situation responsibly. From Kristen's point of view, she may believe she is doing what a mother is supposed to do, fighting, refusing to back down, and making it clear that Rachel is not going to be abandoned. But the problem is that her version of fighting may look less like love in action and more like volatility under pressure. And if the court reads it that way, then Kristen may end up reinforcing the very concerns she is trying to fight against. Because Kristen may think she is protecting Rachel, while in reality, she could be making Rachel's situation look even more unstable. Her outrage may not convince the judge that Rachel deserves mercy. It may convince the judge that Rachel is surrounded by chaos, denial, and adults who still do not fully understand the seriousness of the moment. And that could have devastating consequences. What makes these scenes so tense is the emotional disconnect at the center of them. Kristen is reacting from panic, rage, and desperation. The court is reacting from procedure, perception, and consequence. Those two worlds do not speak the same language. And when they collide, Rachel may be the one who pays the price. That is why Kristen's defiance feels so dangerous here. It may come from love, but it could still push the hearing in a far more damaging direction. Then there is Belle, who fights to prevent charges against Rachel, and that may be one of the most emotionally important threads in the entire episode. Because Belle is no longer just trying to comfort the family or offer reassurance. She is stepping directly into the legal battle, which tells us the danger has become very real. If Belle has to fight this hard, then Rachel is no longer simply facing disapproval or temporary fallout. She is standing dangerously close to consequences that could shape her future in a lasting way. Rachel is still a child, still emotionally fragile, and still deeply influenced by the adults around her. Belle likely understands that once formal charges enter the picture, this stops being something the family can simply manage behind closed doors. The system takes over, and once that happens, the damage becomes much harder to contain. So Belle's role here is bigger than legal strategy. She may be trying to protect Rachel from being defined too early by one terrible act. She may be trying to convince the court that Rachel needs intervention, guidance, and protection more than punishment. And that is not an easy case to make, especially if the people around Rachel keep making the situation look worse instead of better. She is not just up against the law. She may be up against a judge who wants accountability, a hearing already charged with emotion, Kristen's self-sabotaging defiance, and the larger question of whether Rachel has already been given too many chances. All of that makes Belle's fight feel urgent precisely because it is far from guaranteed to work. The harder Belle pushes, the more clearly the audience understands how serious this has become. This is not a routine legal issue anymore. It is a child standing on the edge of a consequence that could alter the course of her life, while one of the few people thinking clearly tries to stop that fall before it is too late. So overall, Thursday, March 26 looks like an episode driven by recovery, guilt, courtroom tension, and emotional shifts that may have lasting consequences. Jada's offer to Shawn may begin as practical support, but it could create a much deeper bond between them. JJ's conversation with Theo may reveal just how badly this mistake has shaken his confidence. Marina and EJ finding common ground may become the most surprising emotional twist of the episode. Kristen's defiance may push Rachel's hearing in an even more dangerous direction. And Belle's fight to save Rachel may show that this situation is now far more serious than anyone wanted to admit. In other words, Thursday may not be about one giant explosion. It may be about several deeply personal moments that quietly reshape Salem before the next crisis hits.